afternoon, good evening. Welcome to today's celebration of the graduating class of NACME Scholars in 2020. My name is FrederiekToney, and I am Chairman of the Board for the National Action Council for Minorities in Engineering. And I'm also President of Ford Customer Service Division at Ford Motor Company. Let me begin by thanking you all for participating and congratulating all of you for your accomplishment of completing your curriculum and graduating. This is a wonderful time to celebrate. You are the future leaders of our country, and we couldn't need leadership more than now. You're going to go out and set the world on fire, and we hope this is a small way of showing our appreciation and recognition for your accomplishments. Tonight, we are going to have several presentations. A couple of your speakers includes MICHELE LEZAMA, who is the President and CEO of NACME. And you'll also hear from from Mr. Brian Tippens of HPE. And you'll also hear from Dr. Jared Henderson. Dr. Henderson represents our university partners and will be one of our presenters. I want to cover a couple of housekeeping items before we begin, and I guess we would categorize them as webinar etiquette points. The first thing I want to remind everyone is that we have muted you and that we will unmute you when we want you to participate. And we want you to participate enthusiastically by clapping or cheering as is appropriate. We will also want you to keep your video on, because one of the things that we're going to do is try to view those of you who are participating. And we have two ways that you can view tonight's presentation. One is through the speaker view mode, and the other one is through the gallery view. If you want to switch from the speaker view to the gallery view, you have to go into the left corner and double click so that you can move to gallery. Now, gallery permits you to view other participants up to 9 at a time, and you can see even more of them by scrolling up or down. And so I also want to ask you to submit questions during Mr. Tippens' presentation. So as his comments conclude, we'll want to have some of your questions so that I can take them and submit them to him directly. And so let's have a great time tonight in this moment of celebration. And I'd like to begin the program now formally by inviting you to help me welcome Dr. Jared Henderson.
Hello, my name is Dr. Jared Henderson, and I want to congratulate all of the NACME scholars on achieving this phenomenal milestone. NACME has played an important role at our university by providing both scholarships and assuring support for underrepresented engineering and computer science students, which remains at the forefront of corporations and universities' strategic discussions. At University of Houston, I serve as the director of the Program for Mastery in Engineering Studies, or PROMISE, and I have been the NACME rep at University of Houston for 4 years. Our NACME scholars are among the best, the brightest, top-tier academic performers, as well as leaders on the University of Houston campus. NACME has been an important resource that helps connect our scholars to a small cohort-style community of other high-achieving students. In this NACME community of scholars, our students challenge each other to grow. And as we like to say at UH, our NACME scholars achieve, connect, and trailblaze. NACME funding also allows these high-performing students to focus on their studies rather than have to work jobs to pay for their education. We are excited to be a part of this program to recognize you as graduating seniors, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Congratulations to the 2020 class of NACME Scholars. You did it, and go Cougs.
NACME Scholars. My name is Quinnell Smith. I graduated from the Georgia Institute of Technology with highest honors while receiving a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and a minor in Industrial Design. Throughout my time at Georgia Tech, I was involved in the Georgia Tech Society of Black Engineers, served as President and Vice President of Event Coordination for the Black Student Recruitment Team, was a mentor to freshmen and transfer minority students at the Office of Minority Education and Development, was a Pi Tau Sigma Honor Society member, and danced with the Georgia Tech Dance Company for 2 years. During my tenure at the institution, I had the opportunity to intern with General Electric Aviation, Caterpillar, Ford Motor Company, and Northrop Grumman. I enjoyed getting to meet students from across the globe, on campus and through programs, such as the Georgia Tech Study Abroad program in France, the NACME Scholarship Program, the ExxonMobil Future Leadership Academy, and the Harvard Summer Venture and Management Program. I'm grateful to the National Action Council for Minorities in Engineering for their support throughout my college education and professional career, and the opportunity to network and meet so many students from across the nation. From NACME events at the NSBE conference to on-campus events and the Case Academy held in New York City, I feel very supported and prepared to continue to the workforce at Deloitte, a NACME board company, as a business technology analyst in Houston, Texas. I'm so excited. As I close, I would like to say congratulations to the 2020 NACME Scholars.
Hello, fellow NACME Scholars. My name is Antonio Brandon, a quality engineer at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, better known as HPE, and an alumnus of the NACME Scholarship Program. I can share with you firsthand that the benefit of a college degree in engineering or computer science will serve you well in your lifelong career choices. As a NACME scholar who majored in computer information technology at Texas A&M, the program proved to be invaluable in giving me access to opportunities that I might not have otherwise considered. If I can give you one piece of advice, it would be to always be prepared, take risks, and invest in your lifelong learning through formal education, as well as networking events where you're not the smartest person in the room. Also, be sure to utilize mentors and build your professional networks. Arguably, today is one such event, an opportunity to network with fellow graduates, but also learn from career role models like my career role model, our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Brian Tippens. Brian is the Vice President, Deputy General Counsel for HPE. He is currently head of the Employee Experience Team inside HPE's Office of Legal and Administrative Affairs, responsible for driving the culture, inclusion and diversity, community service, and career development agenda for the organization. He serves as a member of the Board of Directors of the HPE Foundation and the HPE Political Action Committee programs. And last but certainly not least, he is a board of our hilarious scholarship program, the National Action Council for Minorities in Engineering. Now, please don't forget, please feel free to ask your question by typing it in the Q&A chat anytime during Mr. Tippens' presentation. Include your name, major, and what school you're graduating from in our chat. Our board chairman, Mr. Toney, will do his best to ask your questions out loud at the conclusion of our keynote. Now, please wave your hands in the air to show you're virtually clapping to join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Mr. Brian Tippens. And oh, one last thing, congratulations to the 2020 class of NACME Scholars. You did it, Giga Maggies.
I appreciate those kind words from Antonio, and I'm proud to have you as part of the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise family. I also want to thank our MC, FrederiekToney, Michelle, and the whole NACME team. I want to thank all the family members that are here celebrating with us, but most importantly, I want to thank all of you, the graduates, and to express just how proud I am. It's so great to see the scrolls of the faces, importantly, see all your quotes. This is a very proud moment. But let me say at the outset of my discussion, and discussions about how we can share some thoughts on coping and adapting and remaining resilient. But let me say at the outset that we're living in some very challenging times. I had the opportunity early this year to attend the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, and speak on a stage about emotional wellness. And in preparation for that presentation, it was a great presentation, a panel discussion about the role that corporations play in our employees' emotional wellness. In preparation for that, I was able to do a bit of research. And one of the pieces of research I came upon was a survey from the Gallup organization. You're all familiar with the Gallup organization. They do great jobs in research and academia and advocacy. And I found their emotional wellness survey that they had done several years previously, but I pulled up the 2019 survey, and it asked questions about people's perceived emotional wellness, about fear, about happiness, about anxiety, to test how people are feeling. Around the globe, it was taken by about 161,000 adults in 140 countries. And it astonished me to find out that the scores in that survey were among the lowest in years in terms of fear, in terms of anxiety. The scores of folks in the United States scored low around the scores of the Iran and Iraq and the Palestinian territories. It told us that we're living in a position of great anxiety for a number of different reasons, some economic, some political. Many of you, the Gen Zs, right, had among the lowest scores in terms of words like fear and anxiety. And so it told us that we were living in some tough times. We started out this year, January 1st, saying, Happy New Year. Then January 2nd, Australia is burning. January 3rd, the US is going to war with the Ukraine. Fast forward, end of January, we lost Kobe and Gianna. We're living in some challenging times. And then come the global coronavirus pandemic that we won't belabor because you're all living it and sheltering in place on some level. You know that the coronavirus pandemic has impacted African-American, Hispanic communities, diverse communities disproportionately. But then fast forward to the events of the last couple of weeks. On top of all that uncertainty and all that comes from that came, let me just say, George Floyd should not be dead. His life was taken unjustly, as have the lives of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and countless other African-Americans. And I know, and you know, that everyone deserves to live free of systematic oppression and racial violence. We believe that Black Lives Matter, and just to be clear, silence from any of us during this time is unacceptable. We all have a responsibility to play. With all that said, I feel as if the world has been forever changed. You probably have heard, probably many, many times, this term, the new normal, whether it's from your professors or your friends or your family or watching the media, a lot of discussion about the new normal. we're living definitely in a new normal, and I agree with that, but I don't believe that should be our focus. I think our focus, and my challenge to all of you, is to focus on the next normal. Moving from the new normal to the next normal. Things are not going to go back to the way they were anytime soon, not in terms of our fears around health and hygiene and distancing, not in terms of the new style of work and workplaces and study, not in terms of race and social justice. You are entering a world of the next normal. And in order to do so successfully, you must, as leaders and future leaders, be focused on how to cope, how to adapt, and how to remain resilient. And so as you embark on your career journeys, I want to share with you a few pieces of advice, a few key messages that I want you to consider and take very seriously as you're thinking. These are pieces of advice that have helped me in my career and will help you along your journey, through your academic journeys and your professional journeys. And I tell you this advice with the foundation understanding that you're not normal, you're not common, you're not average, you're all exceptional. You're NACME scholars because you are among the best of the best. And so I'm not going to waste your time by talking you through the fact that throughout your careers, you will always need to work harder than the majority population. You get that. During this period, and we plan to excel into the next normal, I want you to be very deliberate in building that muscle to cope, to adapt, and to remain resilient. My first piece of advice is to always have a plan for your career. Always have a plan for your career. I'll tell you, when I graduated from the University of San Francisco many years ago, with a degree in information systems management, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was convinced that I needed some more letters behind my name. In the circles that I grew up in, we all aspired for greatness. We all aspired for excellence. And in those days, that meant you went to medical school or business school or law school. Unlike all of you, I wasn't very good at math and I didn't like math, so I decided to go to law school. You didn't have no numbers in law school. And that was what you were supposed to do. Well, many years later, I realized that I didn't like the law. I didn't like practicing law. And $100,000 in debt later, I realized that wasn't my purpose because I didn't have a plan. And so your plan needn't be concrete. I don't expect all of you to have a fully baked vision of where you expect to be in 15 years or 10 years or 5 years or even 2 years. But I do want you to have a North Star, an aspiration of where you desire to be and where you aspire to be. I personally, and I'm irrationally passionate about helping people find and achieve their purpose. And I'm lucky enough to be in a position in my career where I can pick and choose roles that support that value. Now, early in your career, you might not have that flexibility. You have to continue to build a resume. You have to continue to build a reputation. You might even have some bills to pay, right? Now, a good friend of mine, author and speaker, Jonathan Sprinkle, sometimes says, sometimes you have to do what you have to do so you can get to do what you want to do. But even now, early in your career, early in your professional journey, I want you to take some time to be very clear with yourself about what that aspirational North Star is. And I don't expect all of us to be community advocates. I mentioned I'm irrationally passionate about helping people find purpose. You may be irrationally passionate about creating the best code to help engage and captivate. You may be irrationally passionate about framing IT solutions to solve thorny business problems or engineering solutions that keep people safe. Whatever that passion is, I encourage you to identify and stay true to that passion in navigating your career journey. Be deliberate in building that muscle to cope, to adapt, to remain resilient. Second, I want you to be conscious of your brand. I'm guessing in school you probably took some brand classes, or you know the concept of branding. You're very true and loyal to the brand of your schools. I see some school logo shirts on the screen in front of me. When you work in your careers, you're going to work for companies and work to build those brands, those companies. Think about your brand. What do people think when I say the word or the name Antonio Brandon? What do people say when I say the word Christopher Waters? Do they think always on time, always on point, always contributing in sessions? Or do they think aloof, doesn't value my time? What are those brand attributes that are about brand you? I always want you to think about. I mentioned Jonathan Sprinkles. He's a great guy. If you don't know him, his last name really is Sprinkles. Google Jonathan Sprinkles. He asks these questions when you're thinking about your brand and what you stand for. And I've always loved these 5 questions. The first is, who am I? Second is, what do I stand for? Third is, who am I called to serve? Fourth is, what do I want to be known for? And fifth is, what do I want to be known as? And part of that brand, I recommend, is having resilience. I mentioned at the outset that we're living in very challenging times. And that's true. Indeed, in my 48 years on this planet, I can assure you that this is certainly the most tumultuous time. You're graduating to a world, to a workplace at an incredible inflection point. But one thing, the one key lesson that I've learned in my career, in my life, is that we're always just ahead of, or in the middle of, or at the tail end of some sort of significant change. Throughout your career, you will always repeatedly face big periods of change, be they social or economic, or mergers and divestitures and acquisitions, be they leadership changes or organizational changes. Big change is a constant. And in my experience, those of us who lead with resilience are usually the most successful. Rather than be fearful of change, we must embrace change. We must lean into periods of uncertainty, driven by those core values that I discussed. Someone is always watching you. Your brand and your reputation will precede you, so always be cognizant of building your brand. Third and final piece of advice is that you have an obligation and a duty to lead. You are living in a moment of monumental change. You can't have a commencement speech without at least one quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, so here's mine. You all are familiar with the I Have a Dream speech. It was delivered by Dr. Martin Luther King on August 28, 1963. It's where he called for an end to civil unrest and economic rights and an end to racism in the US. It was a speech delivered to 250,000-ish supporters from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. You've all seen the footage. You probably know much of the speech by heart. One of the most important pieces of it, I think I love every segment of that speech, but one that comes to mind at times like this is that, speaking of the time that we were in, he said, now is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time for us. You're leaving school, entering a workplace in a world that's in the middle of massive change. You already know that success and reward do not come without significant effort. And so, as I conclude, I am so honored to be among the small group of people on this session that are partnering in congratulating you on your graduations. I'm very proud of all your great work and accomplishments. You've worked very hard in your academic journeys to distinguish yourselves. I am pleased that you're a part of the community of NACME scholars. Most importantly, I am comforted in knowing that we can rely on you to be our strong leaders to drive our prosperous future into the next normal. So thank you for listening, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say congratulations to the 2020 class of NACME scholars. You did it, and go Dons. Thank you very much.
I do not know if you enjoyed this as much as I did, and this is FrederiekToney speaking now, but I want to say, Brian, you were superb. I agree with some of your points, and it's especially resonated with me, including the fact that you spoke about adapting, coping, and being resilient. Those things are applicable to all of us all the time, especially right now, perhaps. I have a couple of questions that I want to pass on to you that our participants have asked. One is, what is your company doing differently because of COVID-19?
That's a great question. I think, Mr. Toney, we're probably not much different than many other multinational corporations around the world. We have since probably the early days of the month of March been sheltering in place. We're about 63,000 employees doing business all around the world. And every one of our employees, every one of our team members, we call them, have been since that time and continue to work from home. We very quickly leverage tools like the Zoom platform we're using right now, or Teams or Skype for Business, to ensure that our team members were feeling connected. And so we're doing a lot of calls like this, a lot of meetings on camera. And indeed, one interesting side effect of that is I was initially nervous about our employees having to be disconnected, sheltering in place, many of them not accustomed to working remotely. And so I initially had some concerns about feelings of anxiety from being disconnected, employees feeling a little bit anxious not being with their coworkers every day. But interestingly, I found that our team members are in a lot of cases more connected than they were before. Because in our workplaces, and many of you have seen this if you've done internships, you may be going into an office, but frequently you're going to that office to sit in your own cubicle and maybe not even interface with those around you. But when you're all facing on a screen like this and interacting with folks around the world, we're actually being successful in building even tighter connections. And I think we're going to end up, even once we get back to that next normal and folks start to come back into offices, I don't think everyone's going to come back into offices. I think a lot of folks, not just in my company, but all companies, are realizing we sent our employees home and the work still got done. or we don't have to do a commute, or. And so I think this is part of the next normal.
Thank you. I was going to ask you how much of it was going to be part of the new normal. So you answered that. Thank you. So another question that was submitted was, how do you find a corporate mentor?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the best mentorship relationships kind of happen organically. I don't know if you agree with me, Mr. Toney. I think the worst thing you could do, or worst thing you want to hear as a busy executive is, will you be my mentor? It's scary. It sounds like more work, right? Yes. But if you say, Mr. Tippens, I was on that call and I heard what you said. I was really interested in what you said about mental health and wellness. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Can we just sit down and chat a little bit? I want to ask you a couple of questions. And then let that initial discussion grow. And if there's value in that mentoring relationship, then the relationship will grow and formalize. I think those are the best relationships in mentoring, those that happen organically and naturally. I think there's also value in corporate kind of official mentoring programs. Many corporations will have these, usually led by the human resources department or some other business unit, where they'll take a more senior individual and tie them to someone who's lower on the org chart and do formalized mentoring. There's nothing wrong with those programs. I think those are great. I think they're less successful and sometimes more forced than a formal mentoring program. And I would add that I'm a big advocate of reverse mentoring. Mr. Brandon identified me as his mentor. I kind of identify Antonio Brandon as being my mentor as well, because in our careers, we typically think of our mentors being people who are a few rungs above us on the ladder, but there's so much to be learned by people on the same level or who are maybe earlier in their careers who will give you the real deal in a way that others might not. So I think there's multiple different types of mentors.
That's excellent, because not only did you answer my question, but you really poured into how we might do it organically. I hadn't heard it expressed quite that way, Brian. Well done.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions about how the economy is affecting those of us, those of the young folks who are entering the market, the workplace. And one is, are you confident the economy will get better so I can get a job offer?
That's an important question. Personally, and not speaking as an economist or a student of economics, just based on what I'm saying, I say yes, we will. We will see recovery. We will get out of this. I would say, as we're talking about underrepresented minorities, while we will come out of this, we won't all come out of it at the same pace. And there are many among us that won't. There's a lot of wage earning. Some of the restaurants aren't going to open up. Some of the bus lines won't open up back up again, right? And those impacts are going to disproportionately affect underrepresented minorities. And we know that. For those of us who are leaving university with degrees, yes, I think we'll come out of this with a good degree of speed. I think that a lot of employees and major corporations are having to deal with furloughs now or cuts in pay or halting of providing offers. But yes, Frederiek, I'm sure we're going to get through this.
I have another question here. It says, this is from Sophia. It says, what is your brand? How did you figure out how to represent your brand?
That's a wonderful question. So, I'm driven again by this I'm rationally passionate about helping people to find their purpose. I am naive enough to think I can change the world, and I'm driven by a desire to do well by doing good. My brand is all about this. My brand is about giving and love. It took me a while to find that. I don't know if you know this, your generation may not be guilty of this, but in my generation, and Frederiek, you might remember this as well, we weren't told to be transparent. We weren't told to be authentic. We weren't told to bring our whole selves to work. I was told to wear the mask, don't let them know where you live, act as if, talk like, right? We were wearing the mask and being in that mold. So it took me a number of years in my career to realize that I have to be my authentic self and play to my strengths. And that has helped me build my brand over the past several years.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So I think that when we have our president CEO, she might also add some definition to your comments, some additional definition. I think that will I be less competitive if I try to get a job after this is over? I think people are wondering if there's should we wait or should we pursue it right now, or just what you think, Brian?
Yeah, I think there's no disadvantage in waiting. In normal times, we have to really give a lot of thought and analysis as to whether we should take some time off. Should we do a gap year? Is there some opportunity cost lost by not being in the workforce immediately? But we're not in those times. We're kind of in that moving to the new normal. in a period where a lot of people are being displaced from the roles, a lot of people are losing full employment. There's going to be a bit of a gap of full employment for a lot of folks for a while. So I would say no. I'd say take advantage of the time. I'm 48 years old and I'm spending my weekends doing Stanford continuing studies, learning Mandarin and constitutional law, right? Find those ways to continue to build and hone those skills, and you'll have additional lines on the resume when it does come time to find that employment. I think that's a great question.
Now, Brian, someone just sent in the comment that they like that we're keeping it real. So
good. That's the only way I know how to do.
Well, I want to say this. I kind of didn't appreciate when you express your age. I didn't think that was necessary. I'm considerably older than you. I'm not sure the point you were making there, Brian.
Well, I was going to point out that when I was done, you said, Brian, I agree with some of your comments. I was like, not all of them, some of them. All right.
You reminded me, and I want to tell the audience this. Sometimes the thing you most need to do is the thing you least want to do. In fact, you'll find that many, many times. So when you go through and you do that thing you least want to do, you will come out on the other side much stronger, much more resilient, and much more capable of coping. And that's what you reminded me of, Brian. I really, really enjoyed your comments.
I appreciate that. And I'll close with that comment that I said, is that sometimes you have to do what you have to do so that you can get to do what you want to do.
Excellent, excellent.
Thank you very much.
But I know you can't hear us. This is one of those times I'd love to take everyone off mute so that we can actually applaud you, because I think you did a marvelous job. And it's certainly the best virtual presentation I have ever seen.
Good. Thank you all very much.
You bet. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.
I think now I'd like to move on to the next speaker. And I'd like you all to help me welcome our next speaker, who is, the young lady's name is Veronica Osorio-Cortez. Veronica, take it away.
Thanks, Tony. I am Veronica Osorio-Cortez, and I recently graduated from Kansas State University with a bachelor's degree in architectural engineering. NACME gave me the opportunity to focus on my education, meet new people in my major, and meet other engineers who are part of the NACME program. This was all possible by the financial support and commitment of NACME and its leaders. I have been working remotely, actually, part-time for dialectic engineering, and I'll be moving to Kansas City, Missouri in mid-June to start full-time with them as a mechanical designer. I'm excited to live in a new city and meet new people in the area. Thank you, NACME, for this tremendous opportunity. We all greatly appreciate it. And congrats to the class of 2020 NACME Scholars. We did it. Go Cats.
Thank you, Monica. That was wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Tippens. Your keynote was phenomenal. And thank you, FrederiekToney, for guiding us through this wonderful virtual event. My name is MICHELE LEZAMA, and I am the president and CEO of NACME, and I'm thrilled to be with you all today in this virtual format. And I am, too, a NACME scholar. I graduated, 5 years ago, and then some, but I am once a NACME scholar, always a NACME scholar. I remember back in those days when I first graduated from undergrad, right? I went to Northeastern University, which is a university that just joined as a NACME partner institution. And I got my first job at IBM. And they're also a NACME company on our board of directors. I was scared to death. Not so much about the technical role, but was I going to be able to understand the unwritten rules? Would I know how to dress? Will I know how to present? How would I be able to network like everyone tells us that we should? Then I remember my now husband, Ricardo, when he graduated into a very uncertain market like we're experiencing, a lot like we're experiencing today. And he didn't get his first career opportunity immediately after graduating. So I really can understand both sides of this issue, whether you have an opportunity lined up or whether because of COVID-19 and other factors, you're still looking. We want you to know that NACME is still here for you. If you could put the first slide up, regardless of what opportunity that you have or don't have, NACME is an organization represents a board of directors of a number of Fortune 500 companies that you see on your screen. These companies have signed up not only to support our scholarship program, but they signed up to support you. They're all advocates and they want to make sure that you have access to lifelong opportunities. So regardless of what full-time position that you may or may not have received, we want you to know that the relationship with NACME has not come to an end. These companies are willing to interview you even if you don't have a role, or if you secured your first role, there's always opportunity to keep learning and to keep exploring future opportunities. And we want you to think about these companies who funded this scholarship program. But beyond just the scholarship program, we want you to keep in contact. There will be a poll at the end of this program where you're going to be able to tell us whether you have given us your most recent contact information, specifically whether you've given us your email that's not tied to your university, like your Gmail account, because we want to make sure that we keep in contact. You can also keep in contact by sending us an email every now and again. You're used to the scholars@nacme.org email, but you can also now use a new email called alumni@nacme.org. So I want to add to the congratulations and say to all of you, congratulations to the 2020 class of NACME Scholars. You did it. Go Huskies.
am super excited to be here. My name is Chriserica Jeter, and I am a recent graduate from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, receiving my degree in biomedical engineering. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, and have a deep love and appreciation for the hustle that the city has taught me. At the University of Michigan, I managed to serve in several leadership positions. I served as president and vice president of the National Pan-Hellenic Council, regional membership and pre-collegiate initiative chair for the National Society of Black Engineers, and second vice president and stepmaster of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated New Chapter. I also started my own dance team for talented artists within the Black community at the University of Michigan called Ambiance Dance Team in 2016. I value mentorship and served as a mentor with support for incoming Black students and the National Society of Black Engineers, while also balancing other mentees that I acquired along my collegiate journey. I will be starting a new chapter of my life by moving to Atlanta and working for Abbott as a clinical specialist trainee this August. I am super excited to use my education to aid in alleviating pain and assisting people in living healthier and happier lives. NACME provided me with the financial assistance that I needed to complete my last year of undergrad. It took me 6 years, but that's a story for a different day. This organization also provided me with the resources and network to navigate beyond the University of Michigan. Thank you for all of your help, and congratulations to the 2020 class of NACME Scholars. We did it, go Blue.
Hello, my name is Patrick Garay, Patricio Javier Garay Osmer to my Latino cohort. Congratulations, felicitaciones to all the graduates. I lead strategic projects at Air Products. I'm also an NACME board director, and I'm the chair of the finance committee. I'm also an engineering graduate at Lehigh University, a new NACME partner institution, Fly Hawks. COVID-19 has impacted so many plans, including thoughts of having a banquet to celebrate with you in person. But we are thrilled to celebrate with you virtually and to congratulate you on your graduation from an NACME partner university. We are absolutely very proud of your accomplishments. As a thank you for attending today's program, please accept a small but heartfelt gift of $100. Our hope is that you will have a dinner on us, even if it's a takeout at your favorite place, to congratulate yourself for a job very well done. Felicitaciones a la clase de NACME 2020. We look forward to your future contributions to the world. Kaylee, if you're out there, I can't wait to stand together with you at Air Products.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Garay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Christopher Waters, where I recently attended Tuskegee University, where I just graduated with my degree in mechanical engineering. I have been involved in numerous on-campus organizations, such as serving as the president of my chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, as well as serving as treasurer in our NASB organization on campus. My hobbies include reading, traveling, and watching stand-up comedy. After graduation, I plan to use my degree to better improve the quality of life for those in rural income communities. I will be starting my career at a major Fortune 500 company in the aerospace industry this fall. The motto I live by is, everything works in the end. So if it's not working, don't worry, it's not the end. On behalf of the NACME class of 2020, I want to say thank you to the NACME Board of Directors for providing me this opportunity. I also want to thank you for the gift you provided to all of us during this ceremony. And let me say, congratulations, 2020 class of NACME Scholars. We did it. Go Tigers.
Christopher, nice job. Fantastic. I also want to congratulate all of our presenters tonight. I think you all did a wonderful job and your messages were on point. On behalf of the NACME Board of Directors, our university partners, and our staff, I want to thank everyone for attending today and taking part in this ceremony. And I think you all will agree it was a beautiful ceremony. And I want to thank you all for joining us. I also want to call out a special note of appreciation for the family members who are attending. Because I know if you're like me, when I graduated, I couldn't have done it without the help of my parents and my siblings and family members. And everyone makes sacrifices when we endure and get through our curriculums. So congratulations to not only you, but your family members. And I'd like to again say congratulations to the 2020 class of NACME scholars. You did it. Go Chargers. And that's for the University of Alabama, Huntsville, where I attended. So before we close, I want to remind everyone to please complete the survey. And scholars, be sure to include your mailing address to receive your gift card. If you want that money, you might fill out the card. Thank you for that. We will end the program by displaying the partner universities and the graduating NACME scholars from 2019-2020. So we will also be asking you to shout out your school when your name is scrolled. So we'll have to unmute you to do that. So I want to thank you again for joining us and have a wonderful evening. Good night, all. Thank you.
By you, Georgia Tech, Kansas State, University, let's hear you, Louisiana State, Missouri University of Science and Technology, Morgan State, are you there? Morgan.
Come on through these doors.
NYU.
Region 1.
In school. North Carolina A&T. Go Aggies. Polytech University of Puerto Rico.
Hey.
Prairie View A&M.
Nice.
Purdue University. Go Boilers.
Region 4.
Oh, okay.
Rutgers University. RU. San Jose State. Texas A&M. Howdy. Tuskegee. University of Alaska Anchorage. University of Arkansas. University of California, San Diego.
Go Titans.
University of Central Florida. University of Colorado Boulder.
Buffs.
University of Houston.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.
University of Southern California, I know you're there.
Go Titans.
University of Texas El Paso.
Got a chat line that's blowing up.
University of Washington.
Dub.
City College of New York. Go Kaylee. To our producers, Global Events, thank you so much for joining today's program. We are so proud of you. Give yourself a round of applause.